Morena Miles was an undergraduate in college. She studied sculpture.
Then her interest shifted and her academic career brought her to the University of Maine, where her studies in a much different field have now taken her to the ends of the earth. In the last year and a half, Morena Miles has made 2 different trips to South America to do fieldwork in geology. Although she's not a professional photographer, she took a decent camera with her and snapped hundreds of photos. Some of work, some of the land and sea around her.
Part of doing this research is communicating it afterwards and being able to have these photos to draw upon during presentations like this or scientific presentations. It's really helpful to bring the viewer into where we were and what was actually going on at the time.
The pictures are now on display at the Hudson Museum at the University of Maine in Orono. They chronicle the work Miles did with a team of about 10 researchers who are documenting the end of the Ice Age. Miles traveled from Maine to Santiago, Chile, and then to the very southern tip of the country and the continent. She spent a month on a 66-foot sailboat that took the researchers where they needed to go and provided a home for them. Why did you spend a month on a sailboat? Why was that the best way to do your work?
So this whole southern tip of South America, there's a couple towns, but there's no real infrastructure. There's no roads, there's no hiking trails or anything in this whole area. So accessing these areas by boat is the easiest way to do it.
What did you do while you were down there? What was the work?
We were collecting bits of boulder to date them, to see when a glacier was at a certain point. So from that we can tell when the ice retreated, how fast it retreated. For the other part of the work, the researchers dug down about 15 feet into bogs to find organic matter that, again, provides telltale information about when ice retreated and plants started growing. But it was all to answer the question of, at the end of the last ice age, how quickly did the ice sheet that covered that area thin?
The hope is this research will give scientists a better understanding of what happened at the end of the last ice age. And that, in turn, will give them a better understanding of what's happening with Earth's changing climate today. The team did its work in a remote, rugged region where very few people live. This was no vacation. The weather, to mention just one thing, was not particularly pleasant, right?
Right.
What was it like?
Well, there were a couple sunny days, and they were wonderful, but most of the time it was rainy. Some days it was snowy, and other days it was horizontal ice pellety.
Morena has also done considerable field work in another challenging landscape, Maine's Baxter State Park. In the last ice age, Katahdin was covered by an immense glacier, which, as it eventually melted, left geologic marks on the mountain like rings in a bathtub. Those marks give geologists a picture of the end of the ice age. The work requires Miles to go deep into the woods, far beyond the trails and campgrounds that most people visit. It is enormously difficult at times to even walk through the woods in the parts of Baxter where you're working.
Yes, there are areas where it's so dense that if you were to trip and fall, the forest is so tight that you wouldn't actually hit the ground. And I really don't know how the moose do it, especially with those antlers. Those woods in Katahdin, the trees are so dense that literally if you were to lean over, you would just hit a tree, and as she said, you almost cannot fall to the ground. That's how thick the forest is there.
How cool the work that they're doing too, to see them drilling into those boulders. It's amazing what they can learn.
It's painstaking work and it takes a lot of patience. It's going to take a long time for the researchers to analyze the geologic samples that they brought back. That's a project to get them all probably years, so they haven't written up any of their findings yet. That will come in time. As for Morena, meanwhile, she will be getting her PhD from UMaine soon, and then hopes to teach geology herself.
As for the photos, they will be on display at the Hudson Museum on the Orono campus until the start of the fall semester.